Hello, today we're going over the latest lesson for Adobe Premiere Pro. This is going to cover some more advanced techniques, or at least intro, I would call them intermediate techniques. We will be looking at keyframe animation, will be one of the things we cover near the end. Get more into detail on transitions and the types of transitions and where to find them. And I'll also go over a lot of the steps that will be required for your projects. So, and there'll be some review in here as well. So with that said, let's take a look at share computer sound. Let's take a look at Adobe Premiere. Now for this project 3, I want you to go over the exact same steps that we went over already in the first 2 projects. So that's roughly the first 14 steps, like from project 2. You're gonna do the exact same thing. You're gonna organize your footage, import it, put it in the correct folders, name them however you want. You're gonna be using stock footage for this project. And just to let you know, I will go over the whole stock footage thing during the office hours on Tuesday. And you'll be able to find the particular links, or you can watch the office hour also to get that information. I'll provide a few links tomorrow during the office hour or around it. And again, to give you access for this particular project, if you've looked at the assignment, I'm also going to give you a little extra credit for doing a little bit more than what's required. And also, if you decide you want to shoot some of your own footage to supplement your project, I will allow that as well. Okay. So a couple of opportunities in project 3 to get extra credit. I know that a lot of you have been having some problems with your computers, some technical difficulties. That does happen. It's true. We are in a professional environment. I'm being as sensitive as possible to all those situations, but just know if you are having problems with your personal equipment, this is something that I've taken for granted, but just because your computer says it does have the system requirements to run Premiere doesn't mean that it can. Keep that in mind. Running Premiere is very taxing on your machine. If your computer, if you bought it for gaming, it should have a good graphics card and whatnot, maybe enough RAM, but keep that in mind that if it just meets the minimum requirements, you're going to have a minimum experience. It just kind of goes with the territory. Again, one of those things, also probably slipped my mind, but keep that in mind as well, that you will need to get a Chromebook with and one of those things that you'll have to let them know is for the Amazon workspaces. Okay, so there's still time to do that. It's Monday, so I think their pickups are Tuesday and Wednesday. So you can still get it for the next couple weeks if you need it. Because we still have about 2.5 weeks or so to go. So there's still time. All right, so like I said, go over the first 14 steps from project 1, project 2, or especially in project 2, because I did count them there. And everything's the same in terms of your organization. That'll be the same. So I'm going to keep working on the same project again, just to speed this up so we don't have, more of the same stuff you have to go over. Now, one of the things that I do want you to go think about, which I haven't done yet, is what happens if we're looking here at our template. We notice that there's certain layers, and by default, we have a limited number of just video and audio layers. And this is what I'm talking about right here, where we place our video, where we place our audio. You might say, well, I have iMovie. iMovie can do several layers. And this Premiere only has 4 layers. That's kind of junky. That's right. I mean, those are just, again, that's just the default. But we can add more layers. So let's just do that first. If I'm going to add more layers, what I got to do is first click on sequence. And then once I click on sequence, I go to add tracks. Okay. And when I add tracks, I'm going to have this dialog screen, and I have for video, and I have for audio, and I have even for what's called audio submix tracks. We're not even going to talk about submixing in audio. And even when I do the advanced editing, I sometimes get into that because it's just, for many people, audio is just to even get the bare minimum audio. I'm happy that they do that. So don't even worry about submix. video tracks. So here's where we add our tracks. It says add as many as we want. So so just so we can see it, I'm going to add 4, just so that's very obvious. And the same thing with audio. Let's add 2. Usually for audio, I mean, they give us plenty. And again, depending on how you're utilizing your audio anyhow, most of your tracks are probably single channel, or should be, that have dual channels so they can play on the left and right side at the very minimum, unless you get into that, again, very intense mixing. But again, that's not this class. And here's where we get very specific placement, either after the video or video 1, video 2, video 4. We can see that we've got a lot of options here. And when we say after, that means above it, okay? After is above it. And if we're talking about after in audio, that means just right below it. So after is like going away from the center, all right? Now we can even do before the first track. So if we do before track, that means if you have a layer 1, a video, then that will get bumped up to layer 2, and then you'll have an empty track underneath it. So this will come in handy if you've been working in editing, you realize, oh no, I never gave room for my my main track, and maybe you're using that as a strategy for like that's your main audio that you want to use as your interview for cutaways, just like you would have done in project 2. This is what you do to kind of push everything up and to maintain your work and then keep your track. Maybe for some of you, you'll say like, oh man, that would have saved me for the last project. Potentially, yes. But if you built it again, if you built your project over, which I know I've done, I've built many projects, especially when I was starting off, that's not necessarily a bad thing right now in your career, because that means you did it twice, which should reinforce your learning, which again, to me, that's a good thing. So I did after 4, 2, also after 4. And then here for standard 2, we can have a standard track. If we're going to go into 5.1 audio, adaptive, or even mono. So if we know we want to just go mono sound, we can just do that right off the back. And then we just click OK. And now, if you notice, 5, 6 just all appeared. There they are, all the way up to now I have 8 video layers. And the same thing with my audio. It's going to go all the way down here to 4. Now, one thing I want to show you is each of these has independent controllers for their audio. But at the very, very bottom, I have my master volume. So this will lower and raise the volume over the entire project. Okay, this is for the entire project. Let me undo that. There we go, put it back to 0. So this way, like if we know we just have like one piece of audio and we just want it kind of lowered or raised just in general, like at one section, then I just drag that and bring it up or down. Okay, that's all I need to do. But I showed you how to do it individually on each track. So you can start to get a little bit more precious. And then today we'll be talking about keyframes. So I'm going to give you even more details. Okay, so let's pretend then that this particular project does represent my, the project itself that I'm working on. Maybe this is my trailer. And so I moved the title a little bit at the beginning. Notice how it changes this time.
It was really quite quick.
That because of where I place it, and remember, if I want it to snap, I just hold down shift and it'll snap to my cut points. But the graphic ends, and then I have a fade in. Okay, this would be like a fade from color. That is one of your requirements for your project 3. Just remember that. But notice how one will end. It doesn't fade, but then the other one fades in, and it gives it a nice detail.
Was really quite.
It's kind of a nice, to me, it's like it ends, but then the other one will come in. If I want to, though, I can create a diptych color. So again, if I right click at the very end and I put a default transition, the default transition is across dissolve. So I can have it dip on one side and then dip on the other. So I can create my own fade to or fade from a color. In this case, it's going to go to black because there is nothing underneath it. So it's going to go to and from black. And notice that there's just one way I can create my own fade. So fade out, black, fade in.
Was really quite.
And that's by adding a cross dissolve on both clips, the clip that's ending and the clip that's beginning. Okay, clip that's ending, clip that's beginning. Now let's say though that I want to add a transition between these 2 clips right here. So what I do is I right click in between the 2 and I do again my apply default transition. This time, if you notice, it's applied video transition appear. Let me move that, there we go. Video transition appear, and even an audio transition down here. The time doesn't change, so I'm going to undo that so you can see that. See, it's at 28:21. Time doesn't change. So I'm going to apply it again. Nothing changes. The reason why, again, is like I mentioned before, it has enough more data outside of those trim handles, because when we remember it does it also because when we made these sub clips, we did a checkbox that said do not restrict the handles to just to that, so that it's like its own little clip. No, that allows it then to recreate the entire clip if you want. So that's why it's able to use that extra information outside of my in and out point to use that data to create the dissolve. So let's see what it looks like. I'm going to move the top layer over so we can really see it.
1978. I thought that University 1978. I thought that his
And there we go. So that's just one way that'll work. But let's do something so that it's more obvious. So let's do a transition between like maybe the bus depot. So I'm going to actually move this down here. Here we go. So what I did here is I moved the depot so we can see that. Again, so we can see the transition. So I'm going to do it again. Right click, apply default transition. And there it is again. So here's what it looks like.
my high school principal. I eventually just said, all right,
Now, again, usually remember when we're adding these types of transitions, it does imply that some big change is happening, typically in the time, location. It's not just it looks nice. It's we don't just necessarily do things at this point just for a purely aesthetic reason. When we get into experimental video, maybe we start talking about that a little bit more. But for now, remember, anytime you had a cross dissolve or even a wipe, it's meant to imply a big change of some kind. So we could even, this could even be like months later, years later.
I eventually just
could be one way. Now, the default is 1 second. I can change the length of it by going to the end. And look, when I go to the end of the transition, I get a different type of little bracket. And because in the inside of it has a little transition symbol. So if I press and hold on that and drag out, notice now I've made the cross dissolve much longer. And it's separate from the audio, but I can also have the audio kind of match too, you know, drag it out. So all of it will transition. Let me show it to you here.
Of my high school principal. I eventually just said, all right.
But notice when I made it longer, because of the fact that the transition, again, is cutting into the other video sections or the extra handle section. If you listen closely to this example, I'm gonna do it one more time, you can hear a little bit of the audio coming in from underneath.
I eventually just said.
It's very subtle, but it's underneath her voice. You can hear some of the other handle audio coming in. So you just have to be careful. So maybe it'd be easier if you just left the, audio maybe nice and short if it doesn't bother you, but let the video.
I eventually just said.
Out. This time we don't hear her audio. Not so obvious.
Principal. I eventually just said, all right.
And then that's the thing. It doesn't become super, super obvious. So again, I'm just grabbing the handles, moving left and right. I'm going to select this transition. I still have it selected. And I want to show you another way of doing it using the effects controls, because as we get more and more advanced in our editing, getting comfortable with this tab up here in effects controls, that's going to be something that we're going to be using quite a bit. Those of you who have some experience with After Effects, this will be very familiar. But again, the way I do my transition is the same. I go to the very end and go to the red, and I can pull out, make it longer. So this way, what I'm actually doing is making the left side longer, and it blocks out because that's the amount of information I have. And I can make the right side, and see, I can customize it. So I can make the right side a little bit longer and the left side even longer. Look at this.
Of my high school principal.
Slow dissolve out.
I eventually just said.
That's what's going on right there. Slow dissolve out, quick dissolve in. But if I wanted to, let's say like I don't like this, I want to move it over. See, I can click in the middle and drag to where it's at that kind of square with the arrow in the middle. And what I'm doing is I'm moving where the cross dissolve takes place. So let's say I want a fast dissolve out and then the slow dissolve in. Now let's look at that again.
I
Dissolve
eventually
out,
just said, all
slow
right,
dissolve
it
in.
was time.
See, there we go. It lasted a little longer, and she's starting to talk. So again, as you become more sophisticated editor, you make decisions based on when and where those cross dissolves happen, the information that's leaving. Do we want that to be introduced into the beginning of the next clip? So there's a lot of little factors to consider in terms of the storytelling and the aesthetics and sort of best technique that you must take all that into account beyond just throw a cross dissolve in there. Okay, so there are several things to consider. And really, the cross dissolve, oh, my nose itches. The cross dissolve is a form already of what we call keyframe editing. Okay, keyframe editing. Let me see if there's anything else I want to show you. Oh, let me show you, instead of doing a cross dissolve, let me delete this one. I have to go ahead and delete them separately. But actually, let me show you the audio really quick. If I select the audio, it works the same way as before. I can make it longer, I can make it shorter, and I can also move its location. Now, this symbol that I have here, if you notice that sort of line with the double arrow, that's a like a slip and a slide. And what that means is I'm moving the edit points completely, and I'm not changing the length of the clip, but I'm changing where they edit in and where they edit out. And as long, again, as I have handles beyond those in and out points, I can do that. But I just want to show you, see, I can pull it out. And this is just the audio editing, and I'm moving it around. So I can even have it all fade out completely.
My high school principal
said, all right, it's time.
And the next one will just start. So again, that's another technique you can do. I mean, there's multiple techniques we can do. Let's do a wipe now. So to do the wipe, what I'm going to have to do is go down to my project pane. I'll click my double arrows, and I'm going to go to effects. And under effects, then I have all kinds of different presets, Lumetri presets, which are going to be my color correction or my LUT looks, audio effects, audio transition, video effects, and then video transition. So video effects, here I just drag and drop. We'll look at that more in week 4 because we'll talk a little bit about that. And then I have video transitions. Here, now I have different types of transitions. I have from 3D motion, so like blocks. Here are my different dissolves. So I have additive, cross, dip to black, dip to white. So those are my fade in, fade out. So let me do that dip to white so that it becomes very obvious. I'm gonna, here we go, put my playhead, again, shift there in the middle. And if I double click, let's see, it used to be double click and it would add. Well, if not, then just drag and drop. I'm gonna put it there in the middle, boom. And now I have a dip to white transition. Notice this is not a audio transition, but strictly a video transition. So if, when I look at it, I'm not getting anything for my my audio. So one thing if this is very important to you, one thing you could do is this. You can add in a default, have the cross dissolve, delete the top, and then add the dip to white. This way you'll have the transition happening in the audio automatically for you, and you don't have to worry about it. So here's what it looks like.
of my high school principal. I eventually.
There we go. So again, that dip to white can be used effectively in different scenarios. Again, that also means usually the end of a section and end of a chapter and the beginning of a new one. Dip to black is the same. No, I guess I dropped that. Here we go. Let me do it again. And notice then I can even move it over to be like at the beginning, to be at the end, or right in the middle. Let's look at the middle first. Dip to black.
I eventually.
There we go. Let's make it a little longer. And let's move it over here to the very beginning. So now the clip itself will be mostly
of my high school
going
principal.
to black and then slowly coming into
eventually
GB there, or that actor at the very end. So see. So we have different techniques. Let's do this one more time.
My high school principal.
Quick dip.
I eventually just said, all right.
See, and it slowly comes into her. Well, if we iris, I'm just going to show you one. Let's do an iris cross. At this point, I mean, it just becomes, I'm just adding.
Paul.
I'm just adding clips. One thing I want you all to notice is at the top of the bar here, we have a color, it's yellow, and then where I added the cross dissolve, it's red. Um, that just means uh, a reference to the way Adobe Premiere's handle or Adobe Premiere Pro handles the render files. Now, render files um, are usually running in the background for the most often used effects and or transitions. For example, like cross dissolve. Notice when I added cross dissolve, there was no render time. There was no waiting. But even here, notice when I added it, it's red, but it's still playing it back. So that's called a real-time playback. As we start to add transitions, as we start to add more add-ons and effects to our clips, your performance on your playback is going to take a hit. This is why we started talking about proxies, and even up here in our project pane or program pane, excuse me, this particular here playback resolution where I can drop it down to a quarter. Again, depending on your machine, you might have to drop it to the quarter resolution and play on the lowest resolution proxy to get a good playback, because if your video starts playing back and it's very, very choppy, that's bad news for an editor. You want as smooth playback as possible. Now, one thing that could also help is like say, okay, well, if I hit return on my keyboard, what that does is, and the yellow bar indicates this too, is that the yellow bar is a real-time render, which means the computer is running or is able to decode the information and play back smoothly. Now, if you notice, here's where that transition was. Now it's green. That means that Premiere went ahead and created a render file for that particular transition, that iris cross. So now it's going to play natively. See, now it's native no matter what, which means I won't have any slowdown in my playback. And if you're wondering, well, how am I doing this playback back and forth? Remember, I'm just using the techniques of J, K, L on my keyboard. So J and L, back and forth, L forward, J backwards, L forward, J backwards, L forward, J backwards, K pause. So that's all I'm doing. But these lines up here, keep an eye on those lines as well, because green is sort of completely rendered. It's going to play back fine. Yellow is the computer is rendering it live. And red means that this file requires rendering. Premiere will be rendering in the background as it plays. You may get some slowdown in your performance. So again, this is more of a warning for you. Let's do a wipe, since we talked about wipes. And let's just do a regular old wipe. Put that guy right here. Show you what they look like. Notice again, no audio.
Reminded me very much of my high school books. I have very much of my high school print.
Those of you who have seen Star Wars, like, oh yeah, that's Star Wars. And if you've seen some older films, some Japanese movies from the 60s and whatnot, 50s and 60s, and you've also seen that technique. If I click on the word wipe, I do also have controllers here, like alignments, so I can, and the length, the duration itself too. If I hit reverse, it's going to play back the opposite direction.
Very much of my high school principal.
Now, why does it go from left to right? Why would it go from left to right? That should, maybe some of you are like, well, why does it go from left to right? Well, it's because that's the way we read in the Western world. Remember, we go left to right. And that's all it's showing. The movement is just more of a positive movement. So you can use that also as part of your show as a way to indicate there's a problem happening, or there's a situation that
reminded me very much of my high school
maybe something is off. So if you wipe backwards, like, uh-oh, something could be off. It's again another one of these techniques that as filmmakers we can use to foreshadow events, or to kind of let the audience know something might be happening soon. All right, so let's see, what else do I want you to do? Dissolve, fade from black. Okay, keyframe animations. So keyframe animation itself is a term that comes from, again, it goes back to animation, 20s and 30s. I mean, all the way back to Disney. And what it is, the master animator would create a shot of, draw out Mickey Mouse standing up. The next thing he would draw is Mickey Mouse falling down. And those would be called keyframes. Then he would give that to his 15 or so assistant animators, which were called in-betweeners. Which what that means is then they were animating the part in between when Mickey falls down, right? And so we call that tweening. That's where that term comes from. We don't have those 15 animators to create the parts where things move. Your computer does that. Adobe Premiere is your tweener. So what I'm going to do is, and I'm going to also show you some advanced effects now too. If I click on this clip here, notice that it gets loaded in my effect control because I had that selected already. And the motion, opacity, and time remapping is referring to this particular clip, which is Jack the bus driver, and we even see it here, bus driver subclip 001. Okay, so if I open up motion, I just want you to take a look at it. I have the ability to move him around, see, just by moving his location here, moving his location here. If at any point I get lost, see this little arrow here? That's the reset. If I click that, it'll put it back to my 00 or my 960 by 540. That's sort of home. I also have scale. It's at 100% right now because it's filling the entire screen, but check this out. If I click and hold and move left, I can make it smaller. I can even make it bigger, so I can zoom in. This is where we get in those different zoom techniques. And one of the advantages of, let's say I'm editing in 4K and I want to export in 1080, or in your case, if you ever have any video clips and they came in as 720 or 1080, if you create your sequence as a standard definition, 480, they're going to look bigger. Your clips are going to be bigger than the size of the sequence, so you can even zoom in on them and you're not going to lose any quality. That's sort of the one of the arguments people make for shooting in 4K, even if they export in 1080. I'll explain that in more detail on Tuesday or Thursday if that's confusing to you. But there we go. See, that's how I zoom it in, zoom it out. I am not creating an animation. I'm just at this point creating size because I haven't made any adjustments over here or any adjustments over here. All I'm doing is changing the size. Rotation. So if any of you shoot video like this and like, whoops, I made a mistake, you can rotate it. And again, let's reset that. Boop. And I have anchor point, so that's where the 00 point that the system has. And we have opacities too, or other aliasing. Opacity is also seeing the image full color at 100%. Notice if I drop it down, it becomes, see-through. So if I drop its opacity down to like 20%, so I can create these kind of picture-in-picture, like these weird composite effects.
When we first met, I'm sure if we first met, I'm sure if you know.
If it means that your video needs it, you can add that. Let me reset that to 100%. Okay. Now let's say though that I want to apply a lot of these techniques here, but I want to drag them with my cursor. What I need to do that is click on the word motion here. And when I click the word motion in effects, notice I got this border around my video clip because I have it selected down here. Then I can click and drag and I can put it anywhere I want. And I can even move it outside here. So if I like wanted to trim out what Jack was doing or the bus driver was doing, I can do that. And again, it's not animated.
When we first met, my initial.
Okay. But let's say then that I want to animate this from the corner and put it back in the middle slowly. We can, that's where we would do our keyframe animation. But before I do that, actually, let's keep it simple. I'm going to put this guy here in motion. Let's put his position back right in the middle. We know he's in the middle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keyframe it so that he goes from, let's say 0. Let's start him off at like nothing and then just have him come all the way up. Okay. So we have 3 aspects to keyframing. We have to have what the clip looks like when the video starts, the changes take place, and then the last thing is what does the video look like at the very end. If we have those first 2 parameters taken care of and it's a simple animation, then the middle part, again, remember the tweening, that gets taken care of for us. Okay. So the way we do a keyframe, in this case, I want to make my clip small to big. Wherever my clip is placed, I want to put my playhead at the very first frame before I do anything else. Put it at the very beginning or at the point where I want my keyframe to start, because you can have a keyframe even start in the middle, okay, if you wanted to. But right now I'm just going to do from 0 to the end, I'm going to start from 0 to about the first quarter of the clip, and then I'm going to have it go from the end of the quarter of the clip back to 0. So I'm going to have it come in and then go away. So to start with, first part, make sure my playhead is at the beginning. Number 1, right here. So we put it at the beginning of the clip. Step 2, open up effects controls and go to my scale and bring it all the way down to 0. Because, here it is at 100%. Okay. But all I need to do is I'm going to click on there and I'm going to hit 0, return, and now it's gone. It's 0. Okay, here's where I'm going to start. So that's what these little clocks are for. This is how I toggle my animation, and then I'm going to have these all the way through here. So I'm going to hit scale, boom, and it's blue. And that's what this little guy means here, add remove keyframe. Notice it wasn't there before, but now it is. And the reason why it's there now is because I just turned it on. This little dot here also point represents my first keyframe. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this play a little bit.
When we first
pause. Actually, I'm going to move it back a little bit because this is a little short. And actually, for our purposes, I'm going to just extend this out a little bit. Here we go. Let me get rid of that wipe. I'm just going to make this extend out so we have some time. So I'm going to say about right here. Okay. I move the playhead, and again, I'm keeping in mind that clip. I select it again, so it gets loaded in my effects controls if I start moving things around. But again, the key is this is selected. My playhead is where I want my keyframe to be, and then I can add another keyframe right here. So that's what this button is for, add another keyframe. The thing about Premiere, though, it's smart enough to know that if you are just changing, let's say the scale, because I'm at scale and I added a keyframe, and if at any point I change the scale, it's just going to automatically add another keyframe. So let me show that to you now. If I click and hold and move up, let's say I put it at about 100. There we go, and I let go. Notice that keyframe was automatically generated, automatically created, because Adobe knows, or Premiere knows, that you added a keyframe already to start with. So if you're changing something, that's the whole point of the keyframe. It knows that you must want this change to occur. So now let's rewind and watch this play out. I'm going to step back a little bit and let's see the work.
Simple, nice people. When we first met, my initial reaction.
And there it is. See, just zoomed in, boom, done. That is your basic keyframe animation. Now what I want to do is I'm going to have the opposite happen. I'm going to let it play.
Physically, he reminded me very much.
And now right here, I want the next keyframe to start. Now you may say, okay, I'm going to put it here, 0. It's like, well, no, because I want it to shrink down again. So anytime we go from 0 to something, and then from something to nothing, remember, we always have to have at least one keyframe because we need Premiere to know that it needs a basis for comparison, really. That's what it is. And those first 2 keyframes, they represent one set of animation, like boom, I'm done. The second set of animation now, we're starting a new one. So we have to do another keyframe. So at this point, I'm going to hit that button right here in the middle, add remove. I'm going to add another keyframe. Because remember, this is saying now, here's how the video clip looks when I'm starting. And I'm going to drag, I'm going to let this play out.
My high school principal.
Now, if I want, remember, I can press the down arrow, and the down arrow will go to the very end of the clip. Now, here's a best practice that you need to know. If I press the down arrow and my playhead goes to the end of the clip and nothing happens, you need to make sure that you have over here the toggle track targeting for this track. That V2 right here must be blue. It must be highlighted. If it's like this and I press up, you see it's not going to do it. It's going to skip it. So I have to make sure V2 is on, and then it'll take into account that second track, because right now Premiere thinks it's invisible. So if I'm going to use my keyboard shortcuts, make sure V2 is blue. Now I press down on my arrow key, my playhead immediately jumped to the end of that clip. But if we notice, this is the bottom of that bus depot. That's not where I want my playhead to go necessarily. So what I do as a best practice, I press my left arrow once. There we go, because that represents the last frame of that bus driver clip. Okay, it's the last frame of that bus driver clip. And at this point, when I press my left arrow one time just to move the playhead once, I can see it. And now I want to go to my scale, and in there I'm just going to put 0 and return, and that means it's shrank down. So let me show that to you all from the very beginning.
When we first met, my initial reaction was physically he reminded me very much of my high school principal.
Down. There we go. Success. And that is exactly what we're doing. And again, if those of you who are being savvy, you will have noticed that I used this bus driver clip up here, the sub clip, to hide the edit here in between these two. You know, so people don't see that edit; they just see it shrink down from that keyframe. So you can. This is again where I want you to start thinking like an editor. We think vertically as well as longitudinally, like this. You know, in that we can use those layers as means to hide our edit points. These are also ways that YouTubers fail to recognize that they don't just have to cut, and you have all their head dropping back and forth. They can create cutaways. Again, that's the difference between cinematic editing and just YouTube editing for content. Let's see. So those are keyframe animations.
Nice people. When we first met, my initial reaction was physically he reminded me very much of my high school principal.
There we go. Now, when we look at our effects here and our keyframes, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. That is very typical. You have to have 4 keyframes. And that's also the same for audio. If we're ever editing any kind of audio, we can use a very similar type of technique. But again, just be sure when we're looking at effects, we're looking at audio right here, or at least in terms of level. And we can do the same types of techniques for like creating moments where the audio needs to dip down, because maybe the audio is playing, but I need to dip down for a second, and then I need to come back up at the very end. Happens all the time with interviews, especially if you have another song as a background, like a soundtrack of some kind. So let me show you how that works. And we do have multiple ways of doing it. I can, if I want, do a right click where that cross is, and I can put like add keyframe if I want. It's in here somewhere. Where are we? The show clip keyframes. Let me see. I think I might be thinking of Final Cut Pro. Here we go. Show keyframes, but well, what I'll do instead, I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to go to Effects Control, and I'm just going to go to Level, and I'm going to say Add a keyframe. Boom. And when I do that, there's my first point. Okay. I'm going to move ahead.
When we first
pause, because let's say I just want that keyframe to just quickly dip down. I can actually drag my clip down like this. Oh, actually, no, I can't. Again, I'm thinking Final Cut Pro. It won't work. So I'm going to add another keyframe there. And then when I drag that keyframe down, I get what's called my rubber band editing. I'm going to move it forward. And one thing that happened is I have this other clip here. Oh, let me undo that. Whoops, I forgot. I got to add another keyframe. Boom. And I'm going to drag down. And then I get this really interesting kind of like dip Y situation. Let's see what that sounds like.
When we first met,
notice her audio went way down.
Initial reaction was
it's very hard to hear now.
Reminded me very much of my high school principal.
But then the audio comes back up, and even that dipping of the audio. Remember, you can use that technique with whatever you have as your cutaway as a way to reference the presence. Remember, we talked about presence in week 1. So if her voice going away and him, in this case, the bus driver being on top, is meant to show us he's important, then there you go. That could be a technique. But in all likelihood, his audio, if it was attached, would then take precedence. And when he goes away, her audio would then come back, and her audio would then take precedence. If this gets confusing, send me an email, or you can ask that question on Thursday. If you're like, well, could you explain that again? And I'd be happy to. So again, that's this type of editing we call rubber band editing. And let's say like, oh, I don't like where I put it. I wish it was further or a few frames earlier. Then I can just click and drag it and move it. And or later, I can do the same thing here, or even at the very end. Any of these little dots, these little rubber bands or keyframes, I can move those how I need them to be. See, I can even make it louder if I want. So let's see what that sounds like for fun, just so you can see what I'm.
When we first met,
down,
my initial reaction was physically he reminded me very much of my high school principal.
So yeah, again, that's just showing you how customizable all this really is. For the audio, I do want you to add an audio file, like music to be playing in the background over your trailer, like movies that you see. And I will be giving you a, again, links to all that information by tomorrow, or by Tuesday, excuse me. So keep that in mind. Export settings, I want you to use the same settings as before. I want you to use the same technique. So let's go back over here. And again, if you're in effects, you're like, well, how do I get back? I can't get over here. You can, if you have a trackpad, you can scroll. But let's say you don't have a trackpad. What you'll do is you hit the double arrows. And when we do this, you can see all of our content. Or like I said, let me see what else I can do. Go to media browser, libraries, because what I'm looking for is my project pane. And see, here it is, project bus driver. There it is. And it was in the double arrows. So I'm working on this project. It's called Your Name Project 2. And I have that in my sequences. Again, this is why it's important to have this type of editing. But let's say I've been doing all this work. I'm just going to duplicate project 2. Click on it once, pause. When I get this editable moment, I'm going to go back here and just change that project 3. Again, I'm just showing you what I'm doing. You're not going to do that because you're using original content. But all I do is select it, file, export, media. Okay, file, export, media with my sequence selected. Click on that. And remember, on the left side, use source range. Keep choosing entire range. Trust me, it's going to be your best bet. Format, H.264. Presets, let's go all the way down to, let's do YouTube this time. Output name, you want to make sure that your name is proper. And I'm going to do finals exports again. And then I'm going to hit save. So in your case, it's going to be brand new because this will probably be a new project. I'll hit save. So it's going to the right place, exporting everything I need. And then I'm just going to hit export. And that'll be the project. You will get extra credit as always. If you send me stills to show me your organization, show me your bins, show me your subclips, even show me your keyframe work. If you show me all of that stuff, in fact, I'll add that as the assignment. I'll be so happy and glad to give you all more extra credit. Again, if you show me your workflows, okay? All right. That is everything I can think of right now. If something comes up or there's people have problems, I'll create another one of these videos. But for now, this will be the demo. All right, everyone, break a leg.